You got a great idea for a fantastic new book. But is it really just one book? What if there could be a second book? Or a third book? We're thinking a trilogy here. Or maybe even a longer series. Wouldn't that be fun? But is that a good idea? What if you run out of ideas? What if you're not even sure how to write the second or third or fourth book in a series? Maybe it's best to just make it a standalone, huh? But wait, don't people like to binge read series? Isn't that something that you've read about in Facebook author groups or, seen online in articles? I get you. There can be a lot of different voices in this space. And the thing is, all of those voices can be absolutely correct depending on what makes sense for your life season. And it's time to get you some clarity so that you can figure out whether doing a series or a standalone makes the most sense for where you are right now as an author. And of course, also where you want to be, because one of the things to think about with a series is that it is a long-term commitment. And if the idea of commitment by itself just kind of makes you a little bit nervous, friend, that might be a sign that maybe you're not ready for a series yet. But really, it can be tough to tell. So in this episode, I'm going to give you my 3 questions to ask yourself when you're considering whether to make your book a standalone or the first book in a series. Answer these questions honestly with a healthy sense of self-awareness and some wise counsel, and you'll be on your way to writing your next standalone or your next series. This is Janeen Ippolito of Author Culture. Let's talk. So welcome back to Author Culture, and thank you so much for hanging out with me today. At Author Culture, we are all about helping ambitious science fiction and fantasy authors just like you achieve your unique, sustainable success in a chaotic publishing world. So if you are an author who is ready to figure out what makes sense for you in your life season and achieve your unique goals in a way that works with your life season and your processes, you are in the right place. And real quick, if you haven't already, do make sure that you hit that subscribe button on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple iTunes, wherever you're watching or listening to this podcast, so that you never miss an episode. And if you want bi-weekly current event updates, plus the option to pitch episode topics to Author Culture, and also to access our exclusive subscriber chat, please do sign up to be a paid subscriber on our Substack. Every little bit helps, as we at Author Culture work every day to help amazing science fiction and fantasy authors like you reach that success, finish that marathon, and get all jazzed up to tackle the next one. Now today we're talking about series versus standalone books and which one you should choose. And this was actually a request from one of our paid subscribers, Ted Atchley, who has an awesome book out there, The Key to Reality, if you want to check that out. Thank you so much, Ted, for all of your support in author culture. Now, the first thing I have to tell you when you're considering writing a standalone or a series is that you have options, my friend. It's more of a spectrum than a either or thing. On one end, you have your absolute rigid series. And on the other end, you have your absolute everything's finished, never going to write in the world again, standalones. But in the middle, you have things like duologies, which are sort of a series, but they're only 2 books. So they're far less of a commitment in terms of time and creative energy. Or you could also do a series of standalone books with connecting characters. So each book wraps up the plot nicely, but also you have these connecting characters that you can see in other books as supporting characters. In other words, there are actually ways of enjoying the benefits of a series without having to lock yourself into something that's very long-term and a massive commitment. And we're going to tackle that as we go into each of these 3 questions. Secondly, when I talk about choosing to write a series or a standalone, I am really focused on indies here. Publishing houses are a whole nother beastie. In general, publishing houses would rather have a standalone that can be turned into a series because the way the model works, they're taking on a lot of risk by choosing to sign your book, do all the production costs up front, and then pitch it and sell it to readers. And of course, you're part of that because these days readers also want that personal connection with authors. But the thing is that publishing house is all about signing that contract with you for that book and making enough money so that you get your advance if they gave you one, and they make back their production costs, and they get into profit for you and for them. Because of that, they don't often take chances on series or trilogies from first-time authors, especially if all of the books aren't available. So if you want to get interest from a publishing house and you have all 3 books in a trilogy written and polished, that might get some more interest in them because they can look at all 3 of the books and figure out if they're marketable and if they're going to fit their brand. But even then, those publishing houses might want to know if you can make the first book a potential standalone, just in case it doesn't connect with readers for whatever reason. There's always that unpredictability with publishing in general, and publishing houses feel it more because they're signing all of these contracts with these authors without a strong sense of how many sales they're going to get from readers. There's always a risk involved in that. And the house, the business, is taking that risk on themselves. So when you're thinking about pitching a book to a publishing house, if you're thinking about making that book a series or a trilogy, I always recommend that you pitch it as something that could be a series, could be a trilogy, could be a duology, but also could be a standalone. I understand that sometimes your idea just is locked into a duology and there's really no way that you can see to break it up. But in that case, if you really want to get into that house, have a standalone book ready as well to pitch to them. Sometimes a publishing house will take interest if your standalone does well, and then they might actually sign you for a duology or a trilogy or series based on the success of that standalone. Basically, they like options. Third, I'm assuming that your ability to write solid stories is at a certain level and that you have an awareness of what readers in your book's genre enjoy, and that you also enjoy those aspects. You also enjoy those genre attributes, and you're ready to communicate the awesomeness of this story to your readers through that fantastic book. You have the ideas, the concepts, the persistence, the know-how, all of those things to make this story or this series work. And it can often take writing a couple of books to get to that level, and there is zero shame in that. Many authors have books that they call practice books, and these practice books are literally their earlier novels that they shove away in a filing cabinet and go, no one needs to see that. That was just me literally figuring out how I really write, what my voice is, what my process is, and what that looks like for me. So taking a chance, making your very first book that you've ever written into the first book of a series is really a risk. In order to make that first book that you've ever written into something that is publishable and inspiring and iconic enough to really connect with readers as the first book in a series, you're going to be working double and triple time. You're going to be having to really force your brain to make crazy pivots and to grow and change and develop creatively at a very expedited rate. Now, doing things at this accelerated pace can absolutely work, and I do it with authors in my author fast track program, and I'm always checking on their creativity and what their pace is like and where they're going with everything to make sure that it's not pushing them quite so much that they hate writing completely once they're done doing this very aggressive author and creative development process. But it's not for everyone, and that is okay. It is okay to take your time and cultivate your creativity on your schedule. And I want to say that again. It is okay to take your time and cultivate your creativity on your schedule. And if that means that you have this beautiful, gorgeous idea for an amazing book series, but you're just not at the level to do it yet, then you can table that and say, you know what, I'm going to work on this standalone, or I'm going to work on some practice books, get my craft to that level, and then tackle that, and it's going to be even better. Use it as an incentive for yourself. Don't try to force your brain muscles to an accelerated pace that maybe they're not comfortable being at just because you feel this sense of, oh, everyone is getting ahead of me. Blinders on, work with your life season and your creativity. So all of your amazing indie authors who are ready to write this book and get it into the hands of readers who will love it, and you are ready to put in the work and do solid, great drafting and editing, let's start talking about these 3 questions to ask yourself before you decide to write a series or a standalone. First, what is your creative process like? If your brain likes to hop around and chase shinies and just gets excited about writing a new, different book every single day of the week, then committing long-term to a series may not be in your best interest. Try out standalones to test the waters in different genres. That's totally fine. And if you're looking for crossover sales, if you're like, well, Janeen, what if I do a standalone and it's really tightly written? I really can't expand it into a series even if I wanted to, but I want that readership. Then what you can do is actually test the waters in different subgenres. You can try different kinds of fantasy subgenres and see which one suits you, or different kinds of sci-fi subgenres and see what suits you. Or if you're thinking about ways to connect through theme and takeaways, maybe try a suspense novel or a thriller novel, and then try a hard sci-fi novel that has suspense or thriller elements in it, so you may get some crossover readership there. And then maybe you want to try something historical, but it's also going to have thriller elements. Thriller readers will follow you around those different genres if they have that thriller element. Not all of them will. Some people are really just dedicated to historical thrillers, and some really just want their contemporary, and some want sci-fi, but you can still get some crossover there while playing around with different genres and figuring out where you really want to be. Or if you're feeling a little more open to commitment, but like not that much commitment, not like the same cast of characters for book after book after book, then what you can try to do is you can try to write standalone books in a series. And this can work well if you do conceptual books, things like different fairy tale retellings. You see this all the time where authors write a fairy tale retelling and then they decide, okay, I'm going to be in the same story world but different characters and do a different fairy tale retelling and a different fairy tale retelling. And that way each story can be its own finished book. You don't have that pressure of cliffhangers or continuing arcs, but you also have the benefit of having people hop around to different fairy tale retellings, especially if they enjoy your voice. And a tip with fairy tale retellings, sometimes people will hop around to your different books. Sometimes readers in the fairy tale subgenre really just like certain fairy tale retellings, so they'll go around and just read Cinderella books. They'll go around and just read Beauty and the Beast retellings, and that's just how that market goes. So understand that, but that can be a way to both let yourself have the benefits of writing in a series, but also have the closure of standalone books. You can also try adventure books set in the same universe. If you're writing romance, you can try different couples all in the same small town. But again, each book has a completed romance and the couple gets together at the end with an HEA. So you don't have that anything open and you don't have that sense of I have to finish this whole series because each book is kind of completely closed. Now, doing this kind of series of standalones does still take more effort than actually just writing a standalone book. You will absolutely have to commit more time and energy into figuring out your character backstories, figuring out your world building, and all of those extra details, especially if you want your books to weave together even in the smallest ways. So when in doubt, just write a standalone. If you're not feeling ready for commitment, write a standalone. It is okay. Understand your creative process and make choices that will flow with that process. You will thank yourself later on. Now for question 2, we're going to be talking about genre. So is there a genre that you really, really love? And what is more common in that genre? Standalone or series? Part of the risk of writing a series is that it just may not click with readers. And sometimes you can't really tell that until the first book comes out and you get reader reaction. But if you do your research and you write solid books, then sometimes it might be better just to work on the series and get it out there because it flows with reader expectations since they want a series. To be kind to yourself, consider doing a duology or maybe a tight trilogy or a tight 3-book series, something that's going to have a definite beginning, middle, and end so that you're not overcommitting yourself. Then if readers respond to your duology or if they respond to your tight 3-book series, then you can do more as you choose. In this respect, I'm thinking of the urban fantasy subgenre, which loves a series. And I mean, it loves a series. And it will tolerate a duology. So, 2 books is fine. But as an urban fantasy reader, if I just see one standalone book that's urban fantasy, I'm kind of going, but that's just where the story starts. That's where we get introduced to the characters. What do you mean you're going to resolve everything in this big world in one book? That kind of hurts my brain. Do I really want to even get started on something when I'm going to fall in love with characters that I'm not going to actually follow through? Because when I go into urban fantasy, that's what I expect. I want to really connect with the characters and I want to follow them through this world. So in some cases, if you know that you can only write standalones, it might be a good idea to just avoid certain subgenres until you know that you can tackle series in that subgenre in a way that readers are going to connect with. And going back to the idea of standalone books within a larger story world, you can always try to do standalone books in a larger story world in a subgenre that actually is going to expect you to write a series. Test the waters, see how it works, do some market research there, and then take that market research with your knowledge about yourself and your ability to commit to a series and get some clarity and make some decisions. But first, here's the third question. How fast can you write? Now, there has been a precedent set by authors who rapid release series. Readers have gotten used to having a number of books out they can binge through, especially in certain subgenres where series are the norm. And if you're able to write fast and write to a certain quality and it works for the subgenre, then go for it. In that case, you could actually do your whole test run with the whole series and just see what happens with it if you have that ability to write fast and also edit fast and get the books to a certain quality and you put it in a genre people expect that. I would say go for it. Now, don't get discouraged. You can still release books in a series effectively even if you don't write super fast. You don't have to release 5 books in a year, but you do need to release books on some kind of regular schedule to create that connection and consistency with readers. So like 2 books a year, 1 book a year, 1 book every 2 years. You got to give the reader something or they will start to taper off. It just happens. So check your writing speed and check your life season. Are you able to consistently get out a couple of books a year or 1 book a year or a book every 2 years? If getting out a book even every 2 years is just not possible for you right now, then I don't recommend committing to a series because you're just not able to keep up your end of that whole reader-author relationship in terms of you writing the books, they read the books, they get excited, they want more books, etc. Now, if you write epic fantasy, more than a few years might be permissible, but even then, readers can get cranky after a while. So there are ways of continuing that connection with readers so that they still care about your story world and what you have to offer in between book releases. But eventually, you do need to release some books. And so if you're in a place where you just can't release books in any kind of a steady fashion, or you can't really even consider creating that reader connection, then maybe you're in a life season where occasional standalones, giving yourself some breathing space, figuring out your creativity is the best option for you. And that's okay. Life happens. Crises happen. You have to take a new job because you lost a job, or you have to move somewhere new, or you have a mental health crisis, or someone you love has a mental health crisis, or a regular health crisis, or all these crazy things happen. When that happens, just ease off on the commitments to your writing, do what you can, and I absolutely recommend in those places, do the standalones. It's better for you, it's better for readers. So it is worth considering how fast do you write, and if you're a slower writer, how able are you to continue those reader connections and sustain reader interest between your book releases? And we have a bonus question because yes, I think those are fun. Should you add a book onto an existing standalone? So you have a standalone out there already, it's published, and you're thinking, I think I could turn this into a series, but is that a good idea? Your bonus question has 3 sub-questions. So when you are considering if you should turn a standalone into a series, consider, has there been enough reader interest? Do you have enough steady sales, especially compared to others in your genre? Are people consistently connecting with your books? When you pitch it to people at sales tables and in-person events, or when you put it on newsletter deals or anything like that, do you get people who do not know you clicking through and getting your book for 99 cents or buying your book for full price? If you're getting that kind of connection that again comes from people outside of your familial or friendship sphere, then that can be a good sign that there is enough interest to maybe turn it into a series. My next question would be, do you actually have enough creative ideas? Maybe you have one, but one really isn't enough. And the thing is, if your standalone book has been out long enough, there may not be that demand that you think there is. People may want more in that series from another character or something, but maybe they don't want it from your protagonist. So think about, if you have enough creative ideas, are they going to be something that's going to be sufficiently interesting to readers and what they've already loved about your first book? And do you have that in a way that's going to sustain you through creating more books in this series? Or is it just a better idea to maybe play with your story world and come at it from a different angle? Use different characters in your story world, tell a prequel story, something like that. And your third question, when we're considering if you should add a series to a standalone book, what are the genre expectations? Are you adding a series onto a standalone book when no one's really asking for it? This does sort of connect with reader expectations and reader interest, but also, depending on how large your reader group is, you may have a devoted little group of readers who want more, but the larger genre doesn't really care that much. And this is where it comes down to, are you approaching this to break even and make a profit, or are you really approaching this in more of an artistic way to connect with your specific readers and to continue creating fun, entertaining things for you and them, and not really for the outside world? If you also want to bring in the outside world and create that connections with other readers outside of that small group, then you have to think about, is there enough expectation for a series in this genre or subgenre outside of your small sphere? And thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Amazing, amazing listeners and viewers. If you haven't already, do make sure that you hit the subscribe button and stay tuned, because we have some fantastic content coming up. We have the amazing Amy C. Williams coming up to talk about mental health in science fiction and fantasy, using the Thunderbolts movie as a great example for how to explore issues, but also keep the action coming and keep the fun coming. And we have some other great guests on the lineup as well, and some fantastic episodes that are really designed to help you to reach your next level in your author life sustainably. This is Janeen Ippolito of Author Culture. Go forth and be awesome.